Close the eyes. Enjoy a breath in. Enjoy a breath out. Just enjoy the breath. And as you are breathing mindfully, with awareness and enjoyment, follow the stream of the breath deep within yourself. Find out where it leads, the ocean of peace, the sea of bliss, the cosmic waters of unity. All streams flow to their source. And because the breath flows in and the breath flows out, that source is both within us and around us and throughout. Knowing that, honoring that, draw the hands together in front of the heart, and we'll lift our voices in one Om, followed by the invocation mantras. Breathing in. Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Ganana Antva Ganapatigom Hava Mahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jesta Rajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anashrinvanuti Basida Sadhanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Bhirvajini Vati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Ano Divo Brahataf Parvatada Saraswati Ajata Gantu Yagnyam Havan Devi Jujushana Kritachi Shagman Novacha Mushati Shrinotu Vagdeviye Namaha. Chant the Devi Suktam. Om Aham Rudrebhir Vasubhishcharam Yahama Adityai Ruta Vishvadevaihi Aham Mitra Varuno Bha Bibarmyaham Indragni Aham Ashvino Bha Aham Somama Hanasam Bibarmyaham Tvashta Aramuta Pushanam Bhagam Aham Dadhami Dravinam Havishmate Supravye Yajamana Yasunvate Aham Rashtri Sangamani Vasunan Chikitushi Pratama Yagniya Anam Tama Adeva Vyadaduf Purutra Bhuristatram Bhurya Aveshayantim Mayaso Annamatiyo Vipashyatiya Pranitya Im Shrinot Yuktam Amantavo Manta Upakshiyanti Shrudhishruta Shradhivante Evadami Aham eva svayamidau vadami jushtaam deve birutamanushebihi yankama yetam tamugram krenomitam brahmanantam rishantam sumedham Aham rudraya danoratano me brahmadvishesharave hantava Aham jana aya samadang kranomyaham dyava prithvi avivesha Aham suve pitaramasya murdhan mama yoni rapsva antas samudre tato vitishte bhuvananu vishvodhamundyao varshmano pasprishami Ahameva vata iva prava amyara bhamana bhuvanani vishva paro diva para ena prithivyaita vati mahina sambabhuva. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In the Durga Suktam. Om Jata Vedase Sunavamaso Mamarati Yato Nidahati Vedaha Sanaf Parshadati Durgani Vishvanave Vasindun Duritat Yagnihi Tamagnivarnan tapasajvalantim vairochaning karmapaleshu joshtaam Durgan Devi Gom Sharanamaham Prapadye Sutarasitarase Namaha Agne Tvam Parayanavyo Asmant Swastipirati Durgani Vishva Pushya Prithvi Bahula Na Urvi Bhavatoka Yatanaya Yashayo Vishvani no Durgaha Jata Veda Sindhunanava Doritati Parshi Agne Atrivan Manasa Grenano Osmakam Bodhyavita Tanuna Pritana jitagum sahamana mugram agnigum huvema paramat sadastaat sana parshadati durgani vishva kshama devo atiduritatyagnihi pratnoshi kamidyo advareshu sanacha hota navyascha satsi Svancha agne tanuvam pipraya swasmabhyancha salbhagama yachasva Gobhir jushtamayujo nishiktantave indra vishnoranusan charema Nakasya prishtamabhisamvasano vaishnavi loka ihamadayantam Om Katyayanaya Vidmahe Kanyakumari Dhimahi Tanno Durgif Prachodayat. I'm just taking a moment and we'll come into the Aigiri. Taking a breath in. Aigiri Nandini Nandita Medini Vishvavinodini Nandanute Girivara Vindhya Shirodini Vasini Vishnu Vilasini Jishnunute Bhagavati He Shiti Kanta Kutumbini Bhuri Kutumbini Bhuri Krite Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyakapardini Shaila Sute Suravara Varshini Dur Dhara Darshini Dur Mukha Marshini Harsharate Tribhuvana Poshini Shankara Toshini Kilbishamoshini Gosharate Danujani Roshini Diti Sutta Roshini Dur Madashoshini Sindhusute Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyakapardini Shaila Sute Ai Jagadamba Madamba Kadamba Vana Priyavasini Hasarate Shikari Shiromani Tunga Himalaya Shringani Jalaya Madhyagate Madhu Madhure Madhu Kaita Bhaganjini Kaita Babanjini Rasarate Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyakapardini Shaila Sute Aishata Kandavi Kandita Rundavi Tundita Shundaga Jadipate Ripuga Jaganda Vidarana Chanda Parakrama Shunda Mriga Dipate Nija Bhuja Danda Nipatita Kanda Vipatita Munda Bata Dipate Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ram Yakapardini Shaila Sute Airana Dor Madasha Truvado Dita Dor Dara Nirjara Shakti Brite Chatora Vichara Dorina Maha Shiva Duta Krita Pramata Dipate Dorita Doriha Dora Shaya Dor Matidana Vaduta Kritanta Mate Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramya Kapardini Shaila Sute Aisharana Gatavai Rivadu Varavira Vara Bhayadaya Kare Tribhuvana Mastakashula Viro Dishiro Dikrita Malashula Kare Dumi Dumita Maradun Dubina Damaho Mukari Kritadin Makare Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramya Kapardini Shaila Sute Ai Nija Hum Kriti Matra Nirakrita Dhum Ravilo Chana Dhum Rashate Samaravi Sho Shita Sho Nita Bija Samud Bhava Sho Nita Bija Late Shiva Shiva Shumbhani Shumbha Maha Avatar Pita Bhuta Pisha Charate Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramya Kapardini Shaila Sute Danoranu Shangara Nakshana Sanga Parispura Dangana Tat Katake Kanakapi Shanga Preshat Kani Shangara Sad Bata Shringa Hata Batuke Krita Chaturanga Balak Shitiranga Gatad Bahuranga Ratad Batuke Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramya Kapardini Shaila Sute Sura Lalana Tatate Tate Krita Bhina Yodara Nrit Yarate Krita Kukuta Kukuto Gadada Dikatala Kutu Halaganarate Dudu Kuta Du Kuta Dim Dimita Dvani Diram Redangani Nadarate Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramya Kapardini Shaila Sute Jaya Jaya Japya Jaye Jaya Shabda Parastuti Tat Paravishvanute Jana Jana Jin Jimi Jin Kritanu Pura Shinjita Mohita Bhuta Pate Nati Tana Tarda Nati Natana Yakana Titana Tiasuga Narate Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramya Kapardini Shaila Sute Ai Sumanas 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 Sumano Harakanti Ute Shrita Rajani 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 Karavaktravrite Sunayana Vi Brahmara 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 Dipate Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramya Kapardini Shaila Sute Sahita Maha Hava Malla Matalika Mallita Rallaka Mallarate Virachita Vallika Pallika Mallika Jillika Billika Vargavrite Shita Krita Pulasa Mulasita Runatalla Japalla Vasallalite Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramya Kapardini Shaila Sute Avirala Gandagalan Madame Durama Tamatangajara Japate Tribhuvana Bhushana Bhutakala Nidiru Papayo Nidiraja Sute Aisudati Janala Lasama Nasamo Hanaman Matara Jasute Jaya Jaya He Mahisha Suramardini Ram Yakapardini Shaila Sute Kamala Dala Malako Malakanti Kala Kalita Malabha Lalate Sakala Vila Sakala Nilaya Kramakeli Chalat Kalaham Sakule Ali Kula Sankula Kuvalaya Mandala Maoli Milad Bakula Likule Jaya Jaya He Mahisha Suramardini Ram Yakapardini Shaila Sute Karamurali Ravavi Jitaku Jitala Jitako Kila Manjumate Milita Pulinda Manohara Gunjita Ranjita Shaila Nikunjagate Nijagana Bhuta Maha Shabari Gana Sadguna Sambrita Kelitale Jaya Jaya He Mahisha Suramardini Ram Yakapardini Shaila Sute Kati tata pita duku lavi chitra mayu katiras krita chandra ruche pranata sora sora mauli mani sporadam shula sannaka chandra ruche jita kanaka chala mauli mador jita nir barakun jarakun bakuche jaya jaya he mahisha sora mardini ram yakapardini shaila sute Vijita sahasra karaika nute Krita soratara sangaratara sunusute Sorata samadhi samana samadhi sujatarate Jaya Jaya He Mahisha Suramardini Ram Yakapardini Shaila Sute Padakamalam Karuna Nilaye Varivasyatiyo Nudinam Sushive Aye Kamale Kamala Nilaye Kamala Nilaya Sakatam Nabhavit Tava padame vaparam padamityaanushi layato mamakin nashive Jaya Jaya He Mahisha Suramardini Ram Yakapardini Shaila Sute Kana kala sat kala sindhu jale ranushin chatite gunaranga bhuvam bhajati sakin nashachi kuchakum batati pariramba sukha nubhavam Tava charanam sharanam karavani nata maravani nivasi shivam Jaya Jaya He Mahisha Suramardini Ram Yakapardini Shaila Sute Tava vimalendu kulam vadanendu malam sakalam nanukulayate Kimu puruhu taporindu mukhi sumukhi birasau vimukhi kriyate Mama tumatam shivana madhane bhavati kripaya kimuta kriyate Jaya Jaya He Mahisha Suramardini Ram Yakapardini Shaila Sute Aye Maidina Daya Lutaya Kripaya Vatvaya Bhavita Vyamume Aye Jagato Janani Kripaya Siyata Sitata Nubita Sirate Yaduchita Matra Bhavat Yorari Kuruta Duruta Pamapa Kurute Jaya Jaya He Mahisha Suramardini Ram Yakapardini Pardini Shaila Sute. Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ram Yakapardini Shaila Sute. Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ram Yakapardini Shaila Sute. Keep the eyes closed. Follow the stream of the breath to the ocean of peace, the sea of bliss, the cosmic unity. And then gently flutter the eyes open. So sometimes when I use that type of visual, I get a vision in my head. And the vision is like a water park. You know, in the water park where they have those huge slides that you go down, and from the top it looks really scary. You know, like, I don't know. I'm not one to jump into one of those tubes, especially if I can't see where I'm going, you know. But even if I can see where I'm going, the steepness of it is a little much for the mentality and the emotionality of it, you know. But then you get onto that slide, and it's like, whee, you know. And then you hit the water, and it's just like the absolute relief of it all. And so that's kind of what this is like, this whole life, this whole spiritual journey, is that we're always standing at the precipice. We're always at the edge. And behind us and around us to some great degree are the attachments that we have to this physical world, which is okay, because this is where we are, and this is the body we're in, and this is the experience that, you know, on some level we're meant to have, whether we like it or not. But we do have a choice. We can become so embedded in those experiences that they just basically pull us apart emotionally, mentally, sometimes physically, you know? Or we can understand that there's a way to enjoy this life more. There's a way to abide in the necessary experience of this life, while also jumping into that ride, that cosmic ride, taking that dive into that ocean and letting it all be what it is. While we're embodied, we can't just let it be what it is, though. That's a beautiful aphorism in the tradition. Let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be. And we try really hard to let it be. But the reality is each and every one of us are basically, our minds are going crazy, thinking about how it should be versus how it is versus how I want it versus how I don't want it. So to let it be is really hard work. Very, very hard work. Just like stepping off the precipice into that beautiful ride down the stream into the origin, the body of water that we can call the ocean of peace, the sea of bliss, or the cosmic space of unity. It's scary stuff. It's just another way to experience this life, though. And what we might find, if we have that mentality, if we have that idea in our mind, everything that happens is simply another way to experience aliveness. Then suddenly we recognize that taking that first step onto that flow knowingly, because like we're already in it, we just don't know it, but taking that first knowing step, jumping off the precipice, as it were, might be painful in the moment, but it's no more painful than staying where you are. It's no more painful than trying to live in the past, what's behind you. It's no more painful than that. So why not? Give it a go. Because what you might find is that when you release yourself a little bit from the fear that holds you either frozen in place or keeps you walking backward, maybe walking forward will on some level feel so much better. And maybe taking that dive will on some level help you to understand the purpose of the past, that you're not meant to stay there. You're not meant to live there. It has a purpose, it has a significance, but it's not permanence. Never meant to be that. So when we come into these mantras, these suktams, these beautiful stotrams, and we start chanting them, we start to say, well, what does it require to get from the precipice onto the flume? A love of amusement, I suppose, is one thing. You have to be able to be amused at the idea of it. Got to get over your fear of heights and steep drops. Got to get over your perception of whatever the perception is, you know. You got to have a little bit of faith. And that's what these beautiful hymns support us in cultivating, is the faith to take that step knowingly. But what does knowingly mean? Knowingly means we don't know. And that's okay. There's a mystery to it. It's always so interesting, though, because, like, why are women so called to things like Wicca and to paganism and to like neo-tantra and to neo-anything, neo-spirituality and to ancient spiritualities? Why are women so attracted to those things is because of the mystery that surrounds them and the mystery that is embedded within them. So there's an inherent part of us that is attracted to the mystery. So why is it that when we're on the edge of the precipice, that mystery of taking that dive is too much of a mystery? It's a different kind of an unknown. You know, we should be really at home with that by now. I mean, all the generations that came before us, you know, all of them. The mother, she is that. So the cultivation of faith, the cultivation of the ability to release whatever it is that's keeping us frozen in place or keeping us held back, that's what these contain. These contain the path to cultivate the faith necessary to start to drop one thing at a time or 10 things at a time or a gazillion things at a time so that we can. You ever watch the Progressive commercial when it had the little piggy as their logo? So before the girl, there was a little piggy. I'm pretty sure it was Progressive. Maybe it was Geico. At any rate. Is it Geico? Is it Progressive? Yeah. And what did he do? He was in a car, right? Was he driving like this? No. He had both hands up in the air and he was going, whee! And, you know, and when I see that, like, I see symbology everywhere. When I see something like that, what I think of is, what does it take for us to go, look, Ma, no hands? That's how much faith I have in you. That's how much love I have for you. That's how much I'm willing to let go. Look, Ma, no hands. Man, that's scary, right? No hands. They tell you when you jump into that flume, put your hands here. Put your hands at your heart. This way, because they know. The people who work that ride, they've been trained, hopefully, and they know that there's going to be a tendency to try to stop the fall, to try to stop the letting go, you know. So they say, put your hands at your heart. And we just say, go here. Or just throw them up in the air, you know, and be like, Jai-ma, 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 and give it all to her. The Bhumi Suktam tells us a lot about that. A couple of verses that I wanted to just go over today in this. This is a very long, it's actually part of the Atharva Veda. It's in the 12th book, Suktams. It's Suktam number 1, book 12, verses 1 through 63. And this beautiful Suktam, you don't have it written up, this beautiful Suktam is all about being in this body, on this earth, and recognizing this earth as her, as a divine mother, and how to cultivate that loving relationship, that adoration, the faith, the Shraddha necessary to let go of those unhealthy attachments. And so I'll read a little bit of the translation to you. Among whose intelligent people there is freedom from bondage and perfect equanimity and balance between high and low, who bears many herbs and trees of varied vigor and vitality, may the earth provide ample room for expansion and growth and possibilities of higher success and progress. Success here, they don't mean like corporate competition. They mean success in feeding each other, in gathering together, in taking joy in the pleasure and the abundance of nature, you know?
And why is that? I'm sorry, but why is that, like, can I ask a question?
Yeah, you could ask a question. You could always ask a question.
Well, I'm just taking liberty to tell you guys.
Yeah.
But, like, why is that not valued? Like, it just seems like when we go and we do things and we're closer to nature and we're spiritual and we're sharing and we're living in community, and yeah, maybe we don't have a lot of money, but people just don't see the value in that. And it's like, I just don't understand how it's gotten so out of proportion.
Well, it's a great question, right? And so an oversimplistic, this is an oversimplistic answer because it would take like a really long time for us to talk this all the way out. But we can understand it by making some generalizations. We can say that what the Divine Mother, as a spiritual religious icon, represents is birth, creativity, creation, unity, love, nurturance, the power, but the kind of power that allows all to thrive, you know? The kind of power that allows all to thrive. Like when the child takes, a toy from another child and the mother says, no, we have to share. Don't be a bully. So we say that these are the kinds of qualities that she generates, that she represents. The divine masculine represents the quality of protection, strength, steadfastness, logic. Now, and many others also, but we're going to focus just on those. And like I said, this is oversimplified, but it gives us the idea that there's something about enculturation that happens here, that these beautiful qualities of divinity, both the feminine and the masculine, because logic is beautiful, protection is beautiful, holding and nurturing and protecting your beloved, right? There's something beautiful about that. Everybody loves a good hug. Everybody does, no matter who they are. But these qualities come to us in this limited human form. And we've been given free will. So early on, when we first started exploring what that free will was, as we started to come into a place of some level of gross self-awareness, this idea of early indigenous peoples and how they were starting to form bonds with one another and and small groups and that were familial and then tribal. And she was prominent because they needed each other to survive. They needed each other to grow and to prosper. And so, for the most part, what we see prehistorically, archaeologically speaking, is that most early communities were mother-oriented. Skip over to the masculine. Those early communities were probably feminine-oriented, female-oriented. They were probably mothers and children. And the men were probably not greatly present. And so one of the theories goes something like this. Men had to acquire access to those communities of women. And so what they did was they promised food and protection. And the protection became enculturated in their personality, which, and again, this is an oversimplification, so anthropologists, archaeologists, and religious individuals listening, please take it with a grain of salt. Down the road, I'll get an email, I know I will. Down the road some way, that protection became warfare. Down the road, some many eons down the road, that provision became hoarding and the power to manipulate. Somewhere down the road, that the females allowed access to be based upon provision and protection, which they were already capable of doing themselves, right? But there's also the camaraderie and the pleasure, aspect of this as well. So that they made that decision, knowingly or not knowingly, to allow this relationship between men and women to somehow, on some level, be based in protection and provision. And the growth of community and the further thriving of community led to separation from other women. Because that's mine, he's mine. He brings more than he brings. He does more than he does. And then you start, to see potentially, I said potentially, greater levels of hierarchy, of importance within communities, which just follow the journey of history, the real history, follow the journey of history. And what it brings us to today are oppressed communities and cultures and exploitative colonialist communities and cultures. And those exploitative communities and cultures have created a very, very complicated structure of competition, greed, oppression, exploitation, so that they can maintain that because they're afraid, and yes, they are afraid, that if they lose any amount of that power, if they don't have absolute power, then they will not be important. So this is toxic masculinity married with toxic femininity when the feminine does not stand up and say, you have forgotten yourself. You have forgotten that this is not protection. This is abuse. You have not remembered the sacredness of your role. You have chosen instead greed. And that's not just for men. That's for women too. Because you cannot have toxic masculinity unless you have toxic femininity. Just like, you can have healthy feminine if you have healthy masculine. And all of them are present in the world today. So our question individually, what we have to ask ourselves is, what path am I walking in my life? Am I walking the path of healthy femininity and healthy masculinity, that leads to an acknowledgement and a faith in the divine feminine and the divine masculine? Or am I walking the path of toxic femininity, toxic masculinity, which is leading me to suffering and to the further corruption of the concept of the divine feminine and the divine masculine? And there's a lot of people in the world today who say that they ask themselves that question, but they haven't really, or they just haven't answered themselves honestly. Because if you're not working for the benefit of everybody, if you're not working for the benefit of the vulnerable, including your own vulnerable self, and I don't mean AKA money and things, I mean freedom of expression, freedom to gather, freedom to support, freedom to accept, freedom to stand together and to grow things together and to disperse things together, to just be, freedom to just be who you are, as long as you're not hurting somebody else, very important. So she goes on in here and she says, the balance between high and low, who bears many herbs and trees of varied vigor and vitality, may that earth provide ample room for expansion and growth and possibilities for higher success and progress. Where seas roll and rivers flow, lakes abound and showers fall incessantly, where food is plenty and people live in comfort, where a moving, breathing, vibrant world of life exists in wide variety, not homogenized, wide variety. May that Mother Earth establish us in abundant peace and prosperity, because that's the only way it will. The more we try to narrow it down and create one kind of human, one kind of corporate, one kind of religion, one kind of anything, the more we pigeonhole ourselves, and there can be no abundance there. There can only be suffering. But the more we break the shackles of those chains, the more we come to embrace the diversity and celebrate each other for that diversity, the more abundant this world will be. The reason why people are violent is because they fear they cannot be accepted. They fear they will not have enough. They fear they'll be pushed out, somehow harmed.
Is that like the sacred scarcity mindset?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Scarcity is number one. Number one. It's our biggest fear. I lack something. Oh, goodness. And we all have so much fear of lack. It's not even funny, I sit and I watch, limited, some of the things that happen in the world today. And I think to myself, man, all of this because of a fear of lack. All of this. Children dying, women and men who are not engulfed in a warlike mind being killed because somebody fears they lack something, People starving because someone else fears they lack something. And they have so much, but because that fear of lack is so strong, they can't give any of it away because they think giving it away is weakness. But actually, distribution is strength. Distribution is strength. We see this for those yoga teachers in the room. This is a good thing for you to understand. We see this in the spiritual community. And by the room, I mean whoever's listening anywhere. In the yoga world today, there is hyper competition between yoga studios that is completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. Work with your community. Work with the yoga teachers that surround you. Teach each other how to be non-competitive. Because when we approach yoga from a space of, these are my students, we are literally spitting in the face of yoga and choosing the toxic suffering instead. When we are underhanded and we undermine each other, when we try to steal from others, when we try to push them out of the way, in that spiritual yoga community. And look, we've all been in a studio that does that, where they're like, we're so much better than the other ones. You don't want to go over there. Those people are weird. You don't say things like that about people. You invite people to come and to go freely. You invite people to come and to go freely. You don't put shackles on them. They already have shackles. They don't need to be shackled to you and your partial understanding of what yoga represents.
I think in the same vein as that also is like trying to get preference of the guru and trying to get them to like be better and competing also with your fellow students.
Exactly.
And I read this wonderful article in Tricycle about that, and it really called it on the carpet, and I thought it was wonderful.
Absolutely, because there is a lot of that too. It's like the student wants to be the favorite. The student wants to be the favorite. And I think back, when my Guruji was in his body, and certainly that's always going to be the case, where you want to know that you're loved by your parent, by your friend, by your guru, But there comes a point in time where we need to learn how to take joy, how to experience joy from seeing another being loved. Right? So when you see somebody else receiving accolades or just being spoken kindly to, or walking away from a conversation with a teacher feeling really good about themselves, have joy in that moment, because thank God that person is not suffering in that moment. And the more that we can do that, the more we'll understand that a true teacher of the tradition doesn't really have favorites. Except Naranja. Doesn't really have favorites. They simply have an understanding of what each student needs, to some degree, a little bit or a lot. And that's the relationship. So in our community of spirituality worldwide, we need to stop with the competition. Stop with if I don't make $750,000 this year at our yoga studio, we gotta end everybody else so we can have all the people. There's not a town, well, there's probably a town, but just for example, I believe Reading has something like 1.9 million people in it or something. Like, there's a lot of people in Reading. They can't all come here. Okay? We don't have the room. When we were in Tom's River, there were 87,000 people. 87,000 people. We could not fit them all in our door if we tried. So thank God there were a multitude of places where they could go and start their inquiry. And hopefully they walked in many doors, not just ours, but many doors. But sadly, that's not the thought process that many yoga studio owners have these days. They think, I got to get the students, keep the students, got to lure them in, got to get them here, got to charge them $25 to $30 for a class. Charge what you have to, because I understand, you got to make ends meet in this day and age. Lord knows that's difficult. But don't forget that there's people who can't afford that. Have an option. My goodness. Don't withhold these teachings from people. We charge too. We do. We say, by donation for most things. Pay what you can. And if you can't pay anything, just contact the office and let them know. They'll give you a scholarship, And even our online stuff. It's like, the online stuff where there is a tuition posted there, but just call the office and be like, I want to learn this, but I can't afford it. I'm not working, or I don't make enough, or you don't even just tell them you can't afford it, and they'll give you an option. Maybe you come and do a little seva. Maybe you do something kind in your community. Maybe you just show up and learn, because that's the most important thing, is to just show up and learn. I love that people walk through the world today and they start talking about the books. I don't know the name of this book off the top of my head. It's based in a very old teaching in the tradition that says, if you give away everything, then everything will come to you. And so people will walk around and they'll say, well, abundance will attract abundance if I give. But they don't give. They just mouth it. You can't mouth it. You got to actually give it. You have to actually step on that fear like Nataraj is stepping on ignorance and say, I am holding that fear down so that with my foot, so that with both my hands I can give. And then what will happen, and I've seen it over and over and over again in my own life, in the life of students, all of a sudden it's like all of these things start coming to you and you're like, Ma, can you slow it down a little bit? No, not really, but just also give me the wisdom to deal with it, Totally. So she, in this beautiful Bhumi Suktam, she tells us these things, where the seas roll and the rivers flow and the lakes are abundant and the showers of rain are plentiful and the food is plenty. This happens when we're aligned with her and with him in a non-toxic fashion, where our hearts are pure and where our faith is deep and where we practice continuously. And it doesn't matter what other people are doing. That's the number one question. What about my neighbor? What about that person down the street? What about those other people? Forget them. Just forget about them. Leave them to their own devices. That's not for you. That's their path. That's their journey. Your journey is to figure out how to organize your life so that your practice can be intense, so that your service can be intense in a good way, so that your heart can be open and vulnerable in a wonderful way, and so that the fear is underfoot, not in hand. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, by all means, go ahead.
I'm very aware of male toxicity, but what is female toxicity?
Feminine toxicity, just like masculine toxicity. When you talk about masculine toxicity and feminine toxicity, you're talking about human personality. You're not talking about divinity, because divinity is not toxic ever. You never talk about divine masculine as if it were toxic. That's ridiculous, You never talk about the divine feminine as if she were toxic. That's not happening. It's us. It's the toxicity that we carry within ourselves. So feminine toxicity is when the feminine, the concept of femininity is used in a way that exploits or suppresses or oppresses. When it is used in a way that harms, when it's used in a way that hides from its own radiance, false humility, outward violence in the name of being female. And by violence, I mean that I'm a woman gives me the right to hurt you. No. That I'm feminine gives me the right to harm you. No. There's going to be violence in this world because there is violence in this world. And there's a way to deal with violence. And there's a way to stand and protect yourself and your loved ones without the toxic anger. So anger can be righteous. It can also be toxic. And it's very tricky how to know the difference. So the toxic masculinity is the force. There's a great book called Power versus Force, or Force versus Power, by I always get him mixed up. There's a scientist he's passed now. The scientist in the wheelchair that has a very similar name to him. David Hawkins. Yeah. So I guess, is it Hawkins? I think it's Hawkins, right? So it's a similar name to the one. Is David Hawkins the philosopher, or is he the scientist?
Stephen Hawking was the scientist.
Was the scientist.
Yeah.
So David Hawkins, I think, then is the philosopher. Look that up on your phone. So he's got a book called Power versus Force. It's a phenomenal read. It talks about how force is coercion. It's manipulation when it's in a toxic or a violent place, whereas power and empowerment is very different than that. So if we were talking about toxic masculinity, we would say that toxic masculinity is full of forcefulness without empathy, forcefulness and manipulation without compassion. Yeah. David Hawkins is the philosopher.
It's the author of the...
Yeah, David Hawkins. Sorry, that's a moment. I've been chanting all morning. And they are similar. Stephen Hawkins and David Hawkins. Goodness gracious. So let me read this fourth verse to you. So we go on now. May that Mother Earth establish us in abundant peace and prosperity. The Earth Mother, whose four quarters extend far and wide in space, where food is plenty and farmers and other people grow happy, which bears and sustains her living, breathing children, vibrant and happy in a variety of ways. May that motherland establish us in plenty with the wealth of food. All her children. So grow food, plant gardens, plant flowers, and then feed people. Invite all your neighbors over, whether you like them or not. Make something with all that zucchini, because it's going to be abundant really soon. Do something with it. Don't just complain that, oh man, my garden's producing so much zucchini. Make zucchini parmesan, or what's the jambalaya, or something like that, and invite everybody to eat. That's what's, one thing that's so beautiful about the Krishna consciousness community is that they feed people. These huge vats of rice and all kinds of other goodies, and they just feed people. They go to places in the world. They actually have been studied because they're so proficient at setting up these kitchens at these areas where maybe there's war or there's something else happening, where there's poverty and people need to eat. And they set up these amazing kitchens, and their process for feeding thousands of people. Truly inspiring. So if nothing else out of today's talk, if nothing else, let's walk away with an intention to be kinder to each other, to embrace diversity more profoundly as a reflection of our faith in that divinity that created that diversity to begin with. Because to condemn diversity is to condemn that creator. And let's feed somebody this week. Let's put it in our heart and in our mind to feed at least one other person. Somebody who, whether it's just out of camaraderie or because it's needed. Let's do that and make this world a little better place. Reflections?
It's funny because I was talking about surrendering to gain during the yin class, and it was just like, just always lines up, how can we do, I don't know, it's like that duality that's not, it's just not.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always parallels, always. I'll give a little secret away. Sometimes students will ask afterwards, they're like, how did you know exactly what I needed to hear? I said, because everybody needs to hear it. Because everybody does. Oh. Any reflections before we end?
I was just really, on target. I love being able to ask questions. I'm big on that, like, because I get something in my mind and I want to, you bring up a topic and I want to explore it, like I really want to plow through that topic and explore it more. So I love the teachings, but I always feel like you know what I mean? So to have you here and, being able to have that opportunity, thank you.
Absolutely. And you can always ask questions, whether there's a few people or a room full. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Let's sit tall. Close the eyes. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. And follow that stream of breath to the ocean of peace, the sea of bliss, the space of cosmic unity. Let that be your guide in this and every moment. On your next inhale, draw the hands together in front of the heart. And together we'll lift our voices in one Om, followed by the All Beings mantra. Taking a breath in. Om. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Now and always honoring your light and the light of all beings everywhere. Om, peace, peace, peace.